I love Lamborghinis, but when it comes down to it, I don't really know if I'd actually buy one with my own money. And that's because when you buy a Lambo, you kind of look like you're trying a bit too hard. And also, as fun as they are, they're not the easiest cars to live with. But what if I told you there is a car that gives you all the fun of a Lambo without all the unnecessary drama? My other Lambo is an Audi. Let's give this a go.
This is the Audi R8 V10 Performance Quattro. It has Lambo power, Lambo fun, and Lambo speed.
Most of that is down to a 5.2 litre naturally aspirated V10 sitting about 6 inches behind my head. Peak power, 620 horses. Peak torque, 580 Newton meters. Peak fun, infinite. This is a rapid roller coaster of a car. No turbos, just rage.
Power goes through a 7-speed S-tronic dual-clutch gearbox, which in this version flows via Audi's Quattro all-wheel drive system. And that means it really does get a move on. 0 to 62 takes 3.1 seconds. Top speed, 206. That makes it faster than a Huracan.
And the sound, I'll never get bored of a V10. Why can't all engines be like this? Okay, I know why. Yeah, we'd all go broke from the running costs and we'd all die from the pollution. But apart from that, come on.
Sadly, the R8 won't be around much longer. Audi has confirmed it will cease production in 2023 and will not be replacing this car. Barring the odd special edition, including a new rear-wheel drive version, the R8 is history. But while it's here, is it still worth your attention as a credible alternative to the Huracan? While it has the same core components, including engine and gearbox, it does have a very different body. It's not quite as sharp and pointy as the Huracan. If you don't want a car that looks like a jet fighter, minus the wings, the slightly more subtle R8 might be the better choice.
Now, I'm not saying it's perfect. I do think the designers of the Audi R8 have quite often struggled with the design, particularly with the front end, which to me looks more like it belongs on a sports car rather than on a supercar. But they have tried their best. However, why are there so many fake bits? Most of this grille, fake, plastic. Down here, fake, plastic. Back there, fake. What's the point? It's a supercar, for God's sake. Get rid of the fake stuff. The back end, far better. Wide, low, sleek, sporty looking. Plus, it's got 2 huge, comically large exhaust pipes. Just the way I like them.
Credit to Audi for the paint too. This is Vegas yellow, a free option. The famous side blade can be finished in body color or black, and those 20-inch wheels are cast aluminium. A forged option, milled from a single block of metal, is also available, but frankly, save your £1,700. They don't look quite as good.
While we're comparing this thing to a Huracan, let me point out a few key specs so you understand the differences between the two cars. Peak power in the Audi is 620 horses, 20 less than a Huracan. Peak torque is 580, 10 Newton meters less. It will do 0 to 62 in 3.1 seconds. That's a tenth slower. And the Audi is around 175 kilograms heavier than the Lambo. So overall, it looks like there are quite a few considerable differences between the two cars until you factor in the price. An equivalent Huracan will set you back £164,000. This Quattro R8, £146,000. That's a £17,000 price difference. It's got its own character as well, this car, honestly. Every Lambo I've ever been in has been quite inhospitable. So much tire noise and wind noise and exhaust noise. And while there is a place for that, sometimes you just want to chill, go for a quiet drive. This R8 is so much nicer to drive in daily conditions. It's quieter on the move in terms of the wind and the road noise. The stereo, you can actually hear that without cranking it to maximum volume. The steering's light, you can see out of the thing. They've actually set this up a little bit like a Grand Tourer, which I quite like.
The cabin is nice too. Simple, elegant, but still desirable, with simple controls for the heating and climate controls, and a surprising amount of storage for your bits and bobs, including a wireless phone charger, 2 USBs, cup holders, and comfy seats. You can either have buckets or less aggressive sports seats like the ones fitted to this car for no difference in price. As for the tech, that's taken care of by a single all-in-one multi-function display.
Some people might appreciate the fact that the R8 isn't completely littered with screens everywhere. I'm not one of those people. Here's a problem. When you have everything in one single central display, it gets a little bit confusing. To me, the driver display should show your speed, your revs, and how much petrol you've got left. When you try and incorporate extra stuff on top of that, like your radio station, your sat nav, your Apple CarPlay, and then force people to control it all with buttons on the steering wheel, well, it just gets a bit complicated. The amount of brain power that's required to keep the R8 on the road and control all the various gizmos, it's incredible. At best, you feel stupid. At worst, it's a distraction.
The best thing to do is just to ignore the tech and enjoy the experience, and that includes when driving slowly. The suspension is compliant enough for even day-to-day use, and it never scrapes its underside on uneven surfaces. It's a great daily, but when you want to push on, knock it down a few gears, and it goes from benign to beast.
That's the best thing about the R8. It's got two sides to it. 1 minute it's a great little daily, and the next minute it's an absolute animal. The steering is brilliant. It's not quite as precise or as communicative as the steering you get on a 911, but what is, still, it's accurate, and you feel like you can place this car absolutely perfectly on the road. The gearbox is so smooth, there's no interruption between the gear changes whatsoever. It's all buttery. Obviously, sometimes you don't want that in a performance car, but if you press this checkered flag button on the steering wheel and then change gear, you get a nice little bump with every single gear change just to make it that little bit more involving. Two things I'd criticize. Number one, these paddles are just way too plasticky. They're not really befitting of a £150,000 supercar. And number two, switching between manual and automatic is too much of a faff. On most cars, you just hold down the right paddle and that'll get you back into automatic. But in this, you got to move the central stick left and right, and it's just a bit too clunky.
Sound is one area where the Huracan destroys the R8. Lambos are super aggressive, you can hear them for miles. This sounds comparatively muted, and it also has a soft limiter on the engine, so it only revs to about 3,000 RPM in neutral. Arguably though, that suits the character of the car slightly more. It's loud, but less in your face.
Throttle response is phenomenal though, watch this. See that? No delay whatsoever, it's alive. It's almost like your right foot is connected directly to the engine. No turbos, no superchargers, just instant response. The brakes, very good. They're carbon ceramic, so they are a bit grabby around town, a bit difficult to stop the car smoothly. Another problem I have is that you can't have this car without carbon ceramic brakes. You have to buy them, which means you're adding thousands and thousands of pounds on top of the price for brakes that you might not need. These are track brakes essentially, and I don't think you really need them, especially for the typical demographic of an Audi R8 user.
The handling isn't quite as razor sharp as the Huracan's, but it doesn't need to be. Not everybody wants to fight an angry Italian exotic chasing every last tenth on the racetrack. Some of us just want to enjoy ballistic performance with the option of maybe not feeling like you've been beaten up at the end of your journey.
All things considered, I love the Audi R8, I really do. It's one of my favorite supercars of all time, even to this day. It maybe doesn't get the plaudits of a lot of its rivals because some people think it doesn't deliver the drama. And admittedly, there are cars that do that side of things better. However, this is such a wonderfully well-rounded machine. It's a supercar you can drive daily with no hassle. It's almost like a supercar for dummies. But at the same time, it's still really rewarding for experts. This car has such a wide breadth of capability, and ultimately, I think it's probably actually better value for money than a Huracan. This, for me, is a thinking man's Lamborghini.